Palmer Show.
Yes! I feel like I've been waiting for this my entire life.
You're listening to the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Jolly good fun. Jolly good.
Locking down the middle of the day.
America's favorite daytime fun show.
Live from the Raising Cane's studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Raising Cane's studio downtown in the capital city on this Tuesday. Hope your work week's off to a good start. Brought to you by Immense Networks Cloud IT Management. Jordan Kitchens, Cassie Spazzali back there on the ones and twos. We'll have Glen West along in 30 minutes talking LSU. Talk a little football. Glen was there as Lane Kiffin met with the media earlier today. So we'll get Glen's thoughts on that. LSU and Southeastern tonight from the box. We'll give that a brief look as well. Sharif Ishak at the bottom of hour number 2 talking about the New Orleans Saints. I've got more Saints discussion coming your way in 15 minutes as well. So plenty to do here on this Tuesday. Let's crank it up the way we do every day with our opening drive.
Welcome to the big league.
It's time for Hunt's Opening Drive. Presented by Fabry Chevrolet GMC in St. Francisville.
All right, for the media's purposes, LSU spring football has come to a close. We won't get another look at the Tigers. Lane Kiffin met with the media today and kind of put a bow on the last 15 practices over the course of about 4 weeks. And now it's all eyes on summer conditioning, all eyes on the staff going out and recruiting the high school ranks, and, of course, looking towards fall camp and the opener with Clemson. So a long way to go before all that. I think it's important for me to specify that I'm aware there's a very, very long time to go before LSU and Clemson play. But Lane Kiffin did, over the course of this month of work, use the term depth chart. And he did use the term starting role. He insisted nothing was concrete, like nothing has been perfectly decided. But like the rotations they were putting out there were indicative of how they feel like things could shake out in August. So I haven't done the math on this, but I would imagine we saw 10 hours of spring football. That's just an offhand guess. And we got a pretty reasonable look on both sides of the ball where this is trending. Guys can make moves in the summer. Guys can certainly make big moves in the fall. There are a couple of guys, Lamar Brown included, who aren't even here yet. So, yes, things are going to change in August. But we look at this, and you can take a reasonable swing at what the depth chart looks like today. So I'm going to do that. I've done it at LouisianaSports.net. I'm going to do it on the offensive side of the ball, and then we'll get to defense another time. But I think I've got a pretty good handle on a lot of the offense. I'll tell you the spots that are more up in the air and that I have less confidence in, but I got a pretty good handle on it. Starts at quarterback. It's Sam Leavitt's team. Yes, he missed the spring. He was able to participate a little bit early on, doing the read option drills, throwing some 7-on-7, throwing some 1-on-1s, but was not able to do the team periods. And then once he got the pins removed from his foot, he was in attendance at practice but not participating. Apparently on Saturday, he was able to play 8 plays, but not a lot of action after the first week of spring for Sam Leavitt. Still, he is the quarterback. I believe, based on what we saw in the last 10 days, that Husan Longstreet has emerged as the second quarterback. I think he is ahead of Landon Clark. I would not have said that with any sort of conviction 2 weeks ago. I would not have said that with conviction after leaving Tiger Stadium in that scrimmage 2 Saturdays ago. But now, I feel pretty good about it. Not ironclad, but I feel pretty good about Husan Longstreet second and Landon Clark third. You look at running back, and this has been a hot topic of conversation really all spring, and I have beat this drum pretty loudly, and you've heard me at this point, and I'm not going to back off of it today. I believe if LSU played a game on Saturday, that Dylan Jones would start the game at running back. Now, that's not to suggest that Dylan Jones would get 95% of the carries and the rest of the guys would just fight for some third down scraps. I think that they would have a significant rotation at that position. However, I think Dylan Jones at this point is on pace to lead the team in carries. I don't know how many U.S. dollars I would wager on that, but I feel like there's a good chance of it. Harlem Berry, absolutely in the equation. Caden Durham, absolutely in the equation. There's going to be a rotation. But I think Dylan Jones has earned a real look. And so if I were to suggest that LSU was going to have, let's do a round number, 30 offensive carries for the backs against Clemson, I think Dylan Jones might get 20 of them. Like, that's how I feel. Again, long way to go, but that's what I think. Wisconsin running back has been a very, very impressive piece to spring football. Harlan Berry looked good. Caden Durham is healthy, it appears. So you've got a big running back stable, and I just feel like Dylan Jones has worked his way towards the top. At tight end, obviously, Trey Green is your guy. He is a nightmare matchup, and now he's going to be in a functional offense, and that's only going to unlock more from him. He was in a no-contact jersey all spring long. From what I could tell, didn't look to be hampering him much. Looked like he was going through all the individuals. Looked like he was going through all the team drills, catching balls one-on-one. Like, I think they were just kind of working him on a pitch count at this point. Lane Kiffin, if we know one thing about Lane Kiffin over his time at LSU, which is not long, you're talking about 5 months, but one thing we know about Lane Kiffin, he is paranoid about practice injuries. He does not like that risk. He's going to mitigate that risk in any way that's possible. He did that by not tackling at all in spring football, and I think he did it a little bit with Trey Green by throwing a no-contact jersey on him and saying, hey, you're not going to go through everything full speed, nobody's going to hit you, and we're going to put you on a little bit of pitch count, and that's the situation that you're in. He's looks healthy to me, but certainly had a no-contact jersey on all of camp. Behind Trey Green, Malachi Thomas for the Pittsburgh transfer is the next guy up. He's been used in some 2 tight end situations. He's also been used as a tight end in the jumbo setting, so that's a guy you're going to see a little bit of in the fall. But I think Trey Green is primed for some preseason All-American honors at tight end. Wide receiver. This is where I don't have as much conviction. I just don't. You had only Philip Wright back from last year, and he's obviously learning a new system, so take that for what it's worth. You brought in 9 transfers and 3 freshmen. So you're talking about 12 new faces at wide receiver. I've got a guess, and I'm going to give it to you, and it's rooted in observation. It's not a complete shot in the dark, but it's admittedly with less conviction than some of the other positions. If you told me they were going out there for the first snap and they were going to put 3 wide receivers on the field today, I think those 3 guys would be Jace Brown from Kansas State, Winnie Watkins from Ole Miss, and Jackson Harris from Hawaii. I think those are the top 3. That's, again, not a 100% conviction, but I feel okay about that. I think right behind those 3 guys, you're looking at Trey Wilson from Florida, Malik Elzy from Illinois. I think those are next, and I would put Philip Wright in that discussion as well. So that's 6 guys that I feel are ahead of the rest of the pack. If you told me that Trey Brown, who missed time, he's the Old Dominion transfer, was going to be in that group in the fall, I'd believe you. But I think that I like Jace Brown, Winnie Watkins, Jackson Harris, Trey Wilson, and Malik Elzy right now. Maybe Philip Wright in there as well. You've got a lot of dudes with a lot of talent. This is something we talked about last week, where there are varying skill sets in that group. Like Jace Brown, Trey Wilson, Winnie Watkins, Philip Wright, they're on the shorter side. They're sudden. They're quick. They got speed. Jackson Harris is bigger and a more physical presence. So is Malik Elzy. Roman Mothershed is built like that as well. I know this staff likes Corey Barber a lot, 5-star, who they brought in from the state of Alabama at wide receiver. But that's my guess. Brown, Watkins, and Harris, 1, 2, 3, and then right behind them, Trey Wilson, Malik Elzy, and Philip Wright. That's how I see it at this point. Remains to be seen. Offensive line, they settled. Like they made a change in week 2, and it stuck. And there's nothing to suggest it's going to be different. We did not see a lot of rotation at that position. You had Jordan Seaton at left tackle. He's a stalwart. At left guard, Bo Bordelon won that job from Devin Harper and never gave it back. I didn't see Devin Harper take any snaps with the first team at left guard after Bordelon was inserted. So he's your left guard right now. Braylon Moore, of course, returns at center. Aliou Ba was the right guard every time we went out there. Maryland transfer. And then you've got Weston Davis at right tackle, who Lane Kiffin talked about today We'll get into that sound tomorrow because he just came off the podium. But he said, yeah, that he's flashed. He's shown some really good signs. He's got to be more consistent. But those are your guys. And you look at the age and the experience level of this offensive line, it's significant. Like, Seaton's going to be in his third year as a starter. Bordelon is only started one game, but he's a fifth-year player. Braylon Moore is going into his third year. Sorry, his fourth year as a starter. 2 at Virginia Tech, let's be 2 at LSU. His fourth year as a starter. Aluba, 24 starts at Maryland, going into his third year. And then you've got Weston Davis, who started every game for LSU last year. So you don't have any guys that are wet behind the ears or green. Like, you've got a veteran offensive line that is not doing a lot of rotating. They have shown you where they think their best 5 are. And you continue to develop behind them with Devin Harper, with Sean Tompkins, with William Satterwhite when he was healthy. You have some depth there. Darren Stray comes in with SEC experience. But Bryson Martinez got some looks at the right tackle with the first team and the left tackle. I mean, with the second team and the left tackle. So you got some guys back there. They had to overhaul that entire position because everybody left. But they've got their first 5 that they want. And again, would it stun me if I went out there on August 17th and something looked different? No, it would not at all. This is one spring with nobody tackling. Got a long, 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 long way to go. But that's your starting offense at this point. And that group, to its credit, did a good job the last 2 weeks of spring. They were brutal 3 weeks ago in Tiger Stadium. 5 turnovers through the air, 1 turnover on a fumble, some 3 and outs, stopped on 4th down, dropped passes, poor offensive. Like, it was rough in there 3 weeks ago. But 2 weeks ago, it looked pretty good. And Lane Kiffin was asked about the scrimmage performance on Saturday to kind of wrap things up. And he said the offense got into a really good rhythm. They made some strides offensively toward the end of spring. How big are the strides? That's not really for me to tell you right now. But I can tell you they've gotten better. And they were up against it entering the spring. You're talking about an all-new offensive line, all-new receivers, brand-new quarterbacks, and then you got some returning help at running back and at tight end. But it's a whole new system that everybody's learning and all new players, and you're trying to go up against a Blake Baker defense that's got some real continuity, both on the staff and in terms of the players that they brought back. So the offense has gotten better. That's a look at where things are from that perspective. We may get into the defense a little bit later on the show. Maybe wait for tomorrow for that. We'll just have to see how things flow here on this Tuesday. We're brought to you by Immense Networks Cloud IT Management. When we come back, we'll transition to New Orleans. I talked about the draft class yesterday, but draft class is not the only thing that this organization looked at over the weekend. They made kind of a big move. We'll talk about it next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Fabry Chevrolet GMC, FabryChevrolet.com, FabryChevrolet.com. Fabry family's been at this for 35 years in Baton Rouge. Their reputation is incredible in this town because they take customer service so seriously, because they understand that a lot of folks have had bad buying experiences on a lot. Feel like you got a pushy salesperson who may be trying to take advantage of you. Like, that's just never going to happen at Fabry Chevrolet GMC. They're there to help. So if you want to start your buying process online, you can do that at FabryChevrolet.com. The entire inventory is there. Check out their Chevy Silverados. Check out their GMC Sierras. The deals are 5 figures off MSRP on those trucks. But if you want to get behind the wheel and test drive it, go up Highway 61 to St. Francisville, talk to that friendly staff, and get behind the wheel and see. It's Fabry Chevrolet GMC. Find that inventory online at FabryChevrolet.com, FabryChevrolet.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Had a great meeting this morning with my guy Justin Boudreau from Boudreau's Electrical Services. Look, weather's warming up. That means summer is about here, and that means storm season quickly follows, right? The time to get that Generac home standby generator installed is not when you know that there's a hurricane coming at the end of the week. Not quite enough time there. You're going to lose power. Not good. Do it now. make the call to Boudreaux's Electrical now. Say, all right, I know storm season's coming. I know that we've had a couple of good years here in South Louisiana where we've been minimally impacted. You never know when that next one's coming, though, and we know how that can go. If it's a direct hit, you can be without power for a couple weeks. Not if you got that Generac home standby generator. Boudreaux's Electrical is incredible in terms of their customer service and their attention to detail with their customers as time goes on. You'll have a full-time Boudreaux's Electrical staff member come in and install. They will monitor your Generac home standby generator 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If there's a mechanical issue, local team come out and fix it. So that when that power comes off in your neighborhood, your generator clips on and you're up and running. It's Boudreaux's Electrical. Give them a call at 985-397-1562. That's 985-397-1562 or 225-300-9389. That's the Gonzales location, 225-300-9389. Get that Generac home standby generator installed soon. It's Boudreaux's Electrical Services. All right, yesterday I spent the Saints portion of our show talking about the draft class. And I talked about the draft class extensively because we know how important that aspect is to a rebuilding team, to a rebuilding organization. You have to get younger. You have to get cheaper. You have to get young, talented, controllable players under contract to change your direction of your franchise. And so I lamented the fact that the Saints did not take an edge rusher earlier because I felt like that was something that they should have done and didn't do. Now, they did get an edge rusher. They got a former top 10 pick. They trade for Tyree Wilson, essentially offloading a fifth rounder for Tyree Wilson. You get one back in the seventh round that you used to take a cornerback. So basically, you traded your fifth round pick for Tyree Wilson. Now, I looked at AI for this. I did not go back and make notes because that would just take forever. Maybe this is off a fraction, but it's probably rooted in a lot of truth, even if it's not 100% correct. Fifth round picks become starters about 16% of the time, according to AI. It's a lottery ticket. It doesn't necessarily bear a lot of fruit. You can hit on a fifth round pick, no question, but your probability is pretty low. So what the Saints did here was trade a lottery ticket, a fifth round selection, for a guy that you know can play in the NFL. Tyree Wilson is going to make the Saints roster. He's going to be on the team, and if you put him on the field, he can play in the NFL. There are plenty of fifth-round picks that are selected that simply cannot play in the NFL. You don't learn that until they get into their mini camps and OTAs and into training camp. But you don't have to worry about that with Tyree Wilson. Now, you have to determine how you're going to evaluate Tyree Wilson when you look at him in New Orleans. I know how I'm going to do it, but you've got to determine how you're going to evaluate him when you look at him on paper. This is a player who has played 3 years in the NFL. He, over the course of those 3 years, has had 16 tackles for loss. He has 12 sacks. And it's been consistent: 3.5 sacks, 4.5 sacks, 4 sacks. Now that, for a fifth-round pick, would be really good. 12 sacks on a fifth-rounder, been on your team for 3 years, awesome. For the seventh overall pick, not great. But guess what? The Saints didn't take him with the seventh overall pick. The Saints got him for a fifth-rounder. So this, to me, is a very good thing. Now, it's not as good as getting an edge rusher in the first or second round because you've got those guys under control for 4 or 5 years. Adams is 3 years into his deal, and you've got 3 days to decide whether or not you're going to pick up his fifth-year option and keep him around guaranteed for 2 years. There are financial implications on that. Costs a little bit more next year if you do that to pick up that option. But to me, the Saints should do that because you've given up an asset for this. You brought in a guy that can play, and you brought him in to be a rotational piece on this Saints team. You look at what you got this year from your edge players. Carl Granderson played 763 snaps, played in all 17 games. 763 snaps. Cam Jordan played 589, so a little bit less. And obviously, Chase Young got hurt. He missed 5 games. He played 542 snaps. But Young and Granderson were pretty good. Young had a great year. PFF graded him a 78 overall on defense. Excellent work. 86.3 in pass rush. Constantly back there. 35 hurries. Was really good for the Saints. Granderson was not as good, but we know he can be. He was credited with 28 pressures, hit the quarterback 4 times. PFF graded 65.7. Cam Jordan was a 76 overall in PFF. That's very, very good. I believe his time in New Orleans is done based on this move, because I think that you're bringing in Tyree Wilson to take Cam Jordan's place as the third guy. Because you look at the snap counts, like Granderson played the whole year. He played 763 snaps. Tyree Wilson played 463, 300 less. He was a rotational piece for the Raiders. I think he's a rotational piece for the Saints. But you look at what Wilson did this year, and you saw the stats with 4 sacks. But in terms of his grades, he was okay in pass rush, 60.4. But I looked at the hurries, 28 hurries. They credit him with 4 sacks. Got back there and hit the quarterback. He was pretty good against the run. He's a rotational piece. And there's an upside here, because you're still talking about a player who is in his physical prime. He's only 26 years old. He's only played 3 seasons, but in those 3 seasons, games played, 17, 16, 17. Very durable. He's 6'5", 265, great size, great measurables, and some production at the NFL level. In all likelihood, not certainty, but in all likelihood, Tyree Wilson is better than a guy you were going to get with a 5th-round pick in this draft. Now, you don't control him as long. He costs a little bit more next year. But you got a guy that can help. And you got a guy that can help at a position where you needed to get a little bit younger. Granderson and Young are a little bit older. And you got a guy that you take a chance on that might blossom. Like Chase Young's blossomed in New Orleans, no question. And we've seen folks leave New Orleans and blossom. Like Trey Hendrickson was great in New Orleans, but hey, incredible in Cincinnati. Zach Baughn's name comes to mind. You just got one back. Caden Ellis was okay in New Orleans, went to Atlanta and was really good. I could throw DeMario Davis's name in that hat. He's a guy that was a good player, but a couple organizations moved on from him. Saints said, we'll take him. He's an all-pro. You never know what rate somebody's going to develop at. If Tyree Wilson doesn't really get any better, he's a fine 3rd defensive end for a 5th-round pick you gave up for him. Not for the 7th overall pick, but you didn't take him 7th overall. If he's exactly what he's been, he helps. If there's upside there, you might have a difference maker. All for a 5th-round pick. I love it. I think this is a great move. I thought that you needed to stand pat and make your picks last year. This year, you didn't need as many holes to fill. There's still some. Didn't need as many holes to fill. So I thought you didn't lose a pick because you got a 7th-rounder back, and you feel like 7th-rounders got well less than a 50% chance to make the roster, even though those numbers were great at Iowa last year. This one makes a lot of sense, and I think this is a good move by Mickey Loomis. And you hope that you've got another guy with a change of scenery that blossoms into an impact player and changes games for you. Not guaranteed, but it's possible. Pedigree's good. Cost is good. The production's been okay. I like the move for Tyree Wilson to the Saints. They went and got him for a 5th-round selection. Got a 7th back on Saturday, Sunday. So Friday, Saturday. So I think that's a very, very good thing for New Orleans. Jordan, do you have a thought on Tyree Wilson?
Yeah, it does. It closes the chapter on the Cam Jordan thing. But at the end of the day, I'm looking at these last couple 5th-round picks for the Saints. Bud Means, Jalen Ford. Yep. I think nobody's losing sleep over that. So
Spencer Rattler.
Jordan Howard, he's cool. DeMarco Jackson, like these are guys that, Tyree Wilson, we know what he is. And if honestly, like you say, he had 4 sacks last year. If he gives you 6 sacks as a 3rd defensive end on his team this year, like that is a huge win. you got him literally for nothing. So I don't have a problem with it. It does indicate that it is over for Cam Jordan. That's a little sad, but at the end of the day, I'm trying to win football games. I'm not here for a Lifetime Achievement Award.
That's right.
So I think Tyree Wilson can be an impact player. And, the upside of you could hit the lottery and, like, this guy somehow takes off. So I know you probably want to give him top dollar, but he might, y'all gave him a chance. He might be able to, cut some type of deal. So I think it's good. Third defensive end, good rotational piece.
Like to see it. Saints are doing things the right way. We like that.
It's crazy, though.
Good
Say
stuff.
That.
Our Tuesday show is brought to you by Mintz Network Cloud IT Management. We'll come back with Glen West next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Swing Easy Golf Club in Baton Rouge, swingeasygcbr.com. It's just now getting to the point where it's warm out on the driving range working on your game. If you're going to hit balls for an hour, it might be a little toasty out there. And certainly, as the months progress, yeah, it's hot. If you want to hit some balls in some climate control, how about Swing Easy Golf Club? You can turn on the driving range setting in the comfort of the air conditioning and hit balls on the track, man. You got incredible, incredible technology in there. You can see the carry distance. You can see the trajectory of your shots. You can see where your club face impacts the ball, and you're not having to change your shirt 10 minutes into hitting golf shots. So if you're looking for a place to work on your game, Swing Easy Golf Club is a great spot. It's right there on Segan at Perkins. You get your individual bay. You can crank some tunes in there, maybe a cold pop or two, or just slide in there during lunch and hit some golf shots. You don't have to be soaking wet when you go back to the office. It's a great, great opportunity to go work on your game in a climate control space at Swing Easy Golf Club in Baton Rouge. They're on Segan at Perkins, online at swingeasygcbr.com, swingeasygcbr.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
If you have an IT department that's overwhelmed, Immense Networks is here to help. If you've got a third-party IT relationship that's just not working, Immense is here to help. Check them out at immense.net, immense.net. They're local in Baton Rouge, LSU grads. They can change the way your IT department functions, and they can help you grow your business with the use of IT. It's not just fixing frozen computers. They can help you actually do the things that you do by using information technology in a more efficient way. Check them out online at immense.net, immense.net, Immense Networks Cloud IT Management, bringing you our Tuesday shows. Let's go out to Jim's Firearms Hotline. Glen West is with us, senior writer over at Go 24/7. Good enough to join us on Tuesdays. Glen, how are you?
Hey, Hunt. Doing well. How about yourself?
I'm all right. Let's start with football. Y'all met with Lane Kiffin a little bit earlier today to kind of put a bow on spring. How do you feel like he feels about his team right now?
I think there's some cautious, optimism there. I think, from today at least, there was a lot of focus around Sam Leavitt and just kind of the goals for him going forward. And, he was obviously, if you caught any of that press conference, he was able to participate a little bit in the 7-on-7 drill work on Saturday, which is a good step forward for him coming off of that latest procedure to his foot. But I think, look, the primary goal here for LSU, at least with Leavitt, is just to get him 100% by fall camp, and it sounds like everything's on schedule to doing that. But I think that Coach Kiffin thinks he's got some really talented players on this team. I think the talent part has been pretty apparent here, at least in the first several weeks of camp. But there's still an element here of not getting into tackling yet that they want to try to see what they have, of course, when they get into fall camp. And so there's still some questions that he has on this team, but I think there's still a lot of optimism around the group as a whole and what he's brought in, and certainly some of the returning pieces they have specifically on the defensive side of the ball as well.
Offensively, I think everyone just kind of defaults to Lane Kiffin's offense is awesome, but y'all asked him about Charlie Weiss today, and he had a lot to say about his offensive coordinator. How integral is Charlie Weiss in the mechanics of this thing?
Oh, they're huge. I mean, he's a huge piece to this thing, and Coach Kiffin really just talked about his relationship with Charlie and just kind of how they've evolved this offense really for the last decade of them working together on and off. And so, look, he's going to be an extremely important piece to this. I think what they the relationship that those two have, they don't have to have a whole ton of conversations in terms of just knowing what the other's thinking, and I think that's obviously something that when you're coming into a new school, coming to a new place with so many new players, having that built-in trust and that built-in relationship with Weiss is going to be extremely important for Kiffin because, look, outside of two players, there's not really many guys that came in with a lot of familiarity with this offense. And I think here, at least in the last half of spring, you could see that a lot of these players are starting to get the hang of it offensively, and there was a lot more of an evenness, I think, to the way that the last couple of weeks of spring camp played out, and that's got to be encouraging for both Coach Kiffin and Coach Weiss.
Defensively, is there anything that stuck out to you in spring? There's a little bit of continuity there, but there are also some really new faces.
Yeah, I think the defensive line is still going to be something that we have questions about going in, just because not from a lack of talent perspective per se, but just kind of the experience level. I think outside of Princewell, Uman Mielen, and a couple of the transfers on the interior that they brought in, LSU's really kind of rotated a lot of these freshmen in and out, and that's obviously really impressive work by guys like Deuce Geralds and Richard Anderson to come in and have such a major impact here with the defense early in their careers. But they're still true freshmen at the end of the day, and so I think that there's going to be a learning curve for all those players. And Lamar Brown is another one that I think will come in and probably earn some type of role on the other side of the defensive end position, and that you're talking about three true freshmen potentially having very meaningful roles here on the defensive line in year one. And so what does that look like early in the season once the bullets start flying and the games start getting going? I think still remains to be seen, but they feel encouraged by the start of those freshmen. But there's going to be some questions as to what kind of impact those guys will have once the games start. But I like what they have in the secondary. I thought that there was some really nice progress made, continue to be made by DJ Pickett and PJ Woodland at corner. I think Ty Benefield and Tamarcus Cooley at safety look really solid. And then another name that I think is going to be really interesting that I think could throw a mix or a wrinkle into the secondary is Fahim Delane. I think he's somebody that, coming from Ohio State last year, really took to the weight and strength, the strength and conditioning program up there in Columbus. He looks like a guy that can just absolutely put, a nail to the hammer of a lot of these offensive players, and just he hits hard. He moves well. I think he's somebody that could really push for some meaningful playing time here in the fall. But I really like kind of where LSU sits defensively right now as well.
Glen West is our guest, senior editor at Go 24/7, covering the Tigers basketball, baseball, as well as football. Will Wade has one player. Is that something to be concerned about?
Yeah, you asked me last week how many players would be on board this time a week from now, and I gave you a very silly answer because in hindsight it looks very this looks like it's going to be a process. It's going to be very drawn out. I think what's really interesting here within the last 24 hours at least has been some of Ross Dellinger's reporting around this 5 years to play 5 seasons kind of a deal. It sounds like right now the NCAA is not going to allow the college athletes that were playing in this last calendar year to be eligible for that new rule if it goes into place here. And I do think that there was some momentum brewing here that, if that rule did get passed here very soon, that LSU would be very interested in a lot of these potential fifth-year players that could have potentially become available. And look, I mean, there's going to be a process to this. I think, there will be some pushback from a lot of these players that maybe want to return to college and get another payday. But that process could be drawn out, a little bit further here now. If that rule comes into place, and in fact that those college athletes those college seniors who have exhausted their eligibility aren't allowed to be grandfathered into this new rule. So that's interesting. I think the international route is something you could see LSU go take a dive into, and then of course there's still some really talented portal players out there as well. Alan Graves, Paul McNeil, some of the guys we've heard about for weeks now. Still haven't made their official decisions yet, and I think LSU's still very much in the mix for both of those players.
All right, let's shift over to baseball. Tigers get swept in Starkville, Mississippi. I don't even know what to ask. That's really where I sit here and look at this. Like, how did we get here?
I think it's just a combination of some missed evaluations this past year for Jay in terms of the position players, and I think that they're just in a really tough spot this season. I don't know that anybody could have predicted what's going on right now. I mean, you're talking about history being made in the wrong kind of way. This last weekend with their third straight sweep, they've lost 9 straight conference games. I kind of wrote in I do this column every week after every baseball series, and it just seems like a whack-a-mole in terms of what's going to plague this team on a weekend-to-weekend basis. Last week at this time we were talking about some encouraging performances out of the bullpen,
yep.
And this last weekend, none of that came to pass. I mean, you were already on fumes when you learned that Casey Evans wasn't going to be participating this weekend because of his arm soreness, but nobody really stepped up in terms of just getting the pitching staff off to good starts. And, the offense, I thought, did its part. That was, something that, 2 weeks ago was not the case. And, this last weekend, scoring 8 runs in all 3 games, you should have found a way to at least win, one of those games. And you were leading, deep into the game of a couple of them and just weren't able to close. And I just think it's just very hard to predict what's going to plague LSU on a week-to-week basis, and that's just is kind of a symptom of a team that has a lot of flaws, and they just haven't been able to correct them. I think it's important that they're leaning into these freshmen here. I thought they had a great weekend, particularly Omar Cerna and Mason Braun. I think you'll continue to see a lot of those opportunities for those young guys, but at this point, it's just something you got to get through as a team and reevaluate here in a couple of weeks when your season ends, and try to get this thing course corrected very, very quickly in the off season.
I had a conversation with somebody in Starkville this weekend, and I said, somebody with LSU, not in the coaching staff, just an LSU fan basically, and said, okay, what if LSU comes back next year with Casey Evans as the ace and William Schmidt as the number 2? Like, how would you feel about that? I'll ask you the same thing.
I still think the utmost of both of them. I think that they're both going to be really, really spectacular players next year for LSU. Sure, I think you're going to have some probably a portion of people out there that would be a little bit nervous and a little bit hesitant if that was going to be the scenario. But I think that they are 2 guys with all the talent in the world, and another year of development to really kind of hone in on their consistency to start these games. I'm just so perplexed by Evans in particular because we've seen him be so great and in meaningful baseball, and it's just been a different script here when you're starting games. And I just would love to know kind of what the thoughts are on just how different, pitching five great innings against Little Rock in the most intense environment and the most tense portion of the season last year, how that differs from just starting a game against, Mississippi State or Texas A&M or Kentucky, to start a game, earlier in the year. Like what is the makeup? What is it that has just kind of had, a little bit of an ancillary effect to where he just hasn't been able to get off to these strong starts? And, I think that's something he's going to have to answer this off season, but I would be okay with them bringing back Evans as their ace and Schmidt as their number 2 guy for next season. I think both of them have all the talent in the world, and it's just going to be about their development this off season and honing in on their consistency. But I think LSU could do a lot worse than that scenario playing out for them next year.
Looking for basketball coverage, baseball coverage, of course, football coverage, you can find it. Go 24/7. Glen West, a senior writer over there. Appreciate the time, man.
All right, thanks, Hon.
It'll be LSU and Southeastern from tonight at the box, 6:30 first pitch. We'll talk about that coming up in hour number 2. Got some football to get to in hour number 2 as well. We'll step aside when we come back. We'll close out hour number 1 next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Lifetime Roofing, lifetimeroofingla.com, lifetimeroofingla.com. They offer you a lifetime warranty. 1, on the workmanship. 2, on the materials. And those materials are backed by CertainTeed, one of the most respected and oldest names in building materials. What a game changer. A lifetime workmanship warranty. If you're in your house for a long time and you feel like you need a new roof, now's the time to do it. And you get that lifetime workmanship warranty. Maybe you're looking to sell your home and you're looking for somebody that can help you finance a new roof to get that new roof in place so that you can sell it. Lifetime Roofing's happy to do that. Maybe you're looking for a roof tune-up to fortify things before storm season hits. because roof's pretty important. Protects your home, one of your biggest investments, and the people that sleep under it. It's Lifetime Roofing. Find them online at lifetimeroofingla.com. A lifetime workmanship warranty from our friends at Lifetime Roofing. Find them online, lifetimeroofingla.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
American Bank and Trust, online FABT.com, FABT.com. First American Bank and Trust cranked things up in Southeast Louisiana 116 years ago. And now they've grown to 25 locations, but all right here in Southeast Louisiana. Bank local. They've got locations in St. Tammany and Tangipahoa parishes, down in St. John, Lafourche, Terrebonne. They're over in Metairie. They're just outside Baton Rouge, Dutchtown, Jones Creek. No matter where you are in Southeast Louisiana, there's a First American Bank and Trust location near you. If you're looking for a commercial loan, First American Bank and Trust. Looking for a personal loan, First American Bank and Trust. The people that make those decisions, right here in Southeast Louisiana. Not national, not looking at you as a line item. You're part of their community. You're part of theirs. It's First American Bank and Trust. Online at FABT.com or step inside one of the 25 branches today. First American Bank and Trust. I mentioned Kason Evans and William Schmidt to Glenn in the last segment there, and something I've given some thought to because those guys have not had bad seasons. They have not had bad seasons. They just haven't taken a huge step forward. They've been okay. They've each had a dominant outing, and they've each held up their end of the rope most weekends, kept LSU in games. But they're not dominating. They're not getting deep into games. And that 1-2 punch atop a rotation is the most important thing in college baseball. It just is. And you look at what walked out the door in July of last year and what they're doing right now, and you get a sense for why LSU was so good last year. Anthony Ianson was a third-round pick of the Red Sox. He is currently just eviscerating high A. He has not allowed a run in 13 2/3 innings. His season-long ERA is 0.54. He's got 27 strikeouts to 0 walks. 27-0. And he leads the minor leagues with a whip of .36. He's basically allowing a base runner every third inning. A base runner, not a run, a base runner every third inning. That is sensational stuff from Anthony Ianson, who LSU found in a lower level in California at UC San Diego. And then you look at Cade Anderson, who's in Double-A, which is really talented stuff. 18 2/3 innings, 9 hits allowed, 1 earned run allowed. That's an ERA of .48. Anderson and Ianson both have ERAs under half a run thus far in their first professional season. Anderson's got 30 strikeouts against 4 walks in Double-A. He's been sensational. And these are the guys that took LSU and threw them on their backs and carried them. Now, neither guy dominated West Virginia in the Super. It was really hot, tough conditions to pitch in, and LSU's offense just destroyed West Virginia pitching. So that weekend, it wasn't necessarily Anderson and Ianson, but it was from about week 3 of league play on, and then certainly in Omaha, where Anderson put Arkansas in a blender, and then Ianson was great after his first inning work against UCLA. And then in the championship series, you had Anderson dominate for a complete game shutout against Coastal, and Ianson get deep into the second game, and you only had to use one reliever in the second game with Shores. And this is an interesting discussion to have because, as I said last week at one point, Skeens is a unicorn. I'm not asking for you to get a guy that breaks the SEC strikeout record and starts the All-Star game his first 2 seasons and wins a Cy Young in year 2 every year. That's a little bit much. I do think you should be able to cultivate a 1-2 punch way more often than not at LSU. Some years it just doesn't hit. And Evans and Schmidt have been solid SEC pitchers. They have not looked anything like Skeens, Anderson, Ianson, really Jumper Holman either. And that's like 7th on the issue list on this team. Your bullpen has been remarkably inconsistent. You had your number 2 starter get hurt. Your defense has been the worst in the SEC. There are so many issues that this team has dealt with. And I'm not here to criticize Kason Evans and William Schmidt. It's more so to laud Skeens, Jump, Holman, Anderson, Ianson, and to realize how special last year was. I think the strong case could be made. Strong case that Anderson and Ianson were the best 1-2 punch in the history of LSU baseball. Strong case can be made. You can talk about some of those early 90s teams. You can talk about Lang and Poche if you want. They had longevity for sure. But Anderson and Ianson, what they did, top 3 in the country in strikeouts, National Pitcher of the Year, top 5 pick. Now what Ianson's doing, throwing 100 miles an hour, like that's a big deal. And one of the things that LSU is going to need next year, if you want to turn this thing around, is for either Evans and Schmidt to blossom into something like this or go get somebody to put at the top of the rotation and let the chips fall where they may. We'll see. That's it for hour number 1 here on a Tuesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. We'll come back after SportsCenter, talk some baseball next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
One Bath and Closets, onebathandclosets.com is the website. That's not the live I was going to do. Gotros Outdoor Power is, though. Gotros Outdoor Power, GoTrosOnline.com, GoTrosOnline.com. We'll get to One Bath and Closets in hour number 2. But if you need a zero-turn mower, you need to talk to my friends at Gotros Outdoor Power. They've got the largest Hustler inventory in the state. They've got the largest parts inventory in the state. They've been the National Hustler Dealer of the Year 2 of the last 3 years. So get by and see them. Family owned and operated for 22 years, 2 locations, one on Airline Highway in Baton Rouge, one in Gonzales. Massive, massive Hustler inventory on Airline Highway in Baton Rouge. Just look off to the side. You see all that orange equipment. That's them. And they can get you behind the wheel of one of those Hustler zero-turn mowers for $100 a month. If you've got a property that you need to manage, you've got grass that is now growing full speed ahead from now until, Halloween, Gotros Outdoor Power is where you need to be. 2 locations, Baton Rouge and Gonzales. GoTrosOnline.com.